There was one thing that David had in his heart to do during his reign that never came to be. David looked around at his palace, his wealth, his fame, and it all did not sit right. For he, a shepherd come king, sat in luxurious comfort. But the God who was behind it all, what place was there that befitted a God like this? What showplace was adequate to tell of his greatness? David wanted to remedy this. He wanted to build a temple for the Lord, a structure of grandeur where people could come and worship the great God of Israel. But God said no. Not no to the temple, but no to the builder. This was not work for David to do. It would be the work of his son, Solomon. And Solomon, having grown rich and prosperous as king beyond anyone's imagination, set out to build this temple for the Lord. It would be even greater than David's imagined structure. It would be greater than anyone had previously dared to build. Solomon would build this to honor the Lord. But why did the Lord desire it to be so? It was not as if God needed such a place. He does not live in temples built by human hands as if he needed anything. He who commands the rain and the sun does not need shelter or shade. Why would God want such a place to be built? What desire in the heart of God was behind the building of the temple? This underlying reason is a familiar one because it's been close to his heart since the very beginning. God desires to dwell closely with his people that he loves. In the garden, he walked with Adam and Eve in unbroken fellowship. In the wilderness, he commanded that the tabernacle be taken down and put up in the midst of the Israelites as they camped. This structure, too, would be symbolic of that desire. Built in the middle of the city, the temple would live as a reminder of this God who desires to live in perpetual relationship with his people. This is what Solomon would build. It would be built with intentional instructions which emphasize the holiness of the God behind it. And in the very middle, beyond gates and curtains, would be the holiest of places. Though the temple would be built in the middle of the city, there would still be barriers between God and his people. And these physical barriers were minuscule compared to the greater barrier of sin that separates man from God. It would be a grand structure, but not the final temple. That was still to come. For God would someday come not to a building, but as a man. He would be Emmanuel, God with us. And in Jesus, God would tabernacle with his people as one of them. This living temple would walk among us, teach us, heal us. This temple would be torn down. At the cross, the true temple, Jesus Christ, would die. And when he did, the curtain in Solomon's temple that separated the most holy place would be torn from top to bottom. The death of Jesus would finally remove the barrier between God and man. The way would be open, not because man was finally holy enough, but because Jesus had paid the price for our sin. We would be free to come to God, to live with him closely. And then the living temple, Jesus Christ, would be resurrected 3 days later. This temple, where all the fullness of God lives in bodily form, will never crumble again.